full-scale revolt among its members of parliament following high-level public opposition led by the first deputy speaker to rumored attempts to depose current leadership.
The leadership of the majority caucus has not changed. We have not contemplated any change, and we do have no intention to effect any changes in the leadership of the majority caucus.
We are live in Parliament where NPP MPs have been left divided as some distance themselves from those attempting to resist the changes.
And to end it all, I think that I've always been a proponent of change because it affords different people to bring on different ideas to support.
Tonight, we'll hear from the party. Tensions are tonight beginning to boil between a group of NPP members of parliament led by the first deputy speaker, Osowusu, and national executives of the governing party over a rumored attempt to depose the current leadership of the majority. Tonight there are desperate moves at the highest levels of the party to avert a full-scale revolt among NPP MPs in parliament. Already some MPs on the majority side are beginning to distance themselves from the Osowusu-led rebellion while calling for broader consultations. It all started with a surprise press conference called by the first deputy speaker earlier today. Listen.
We are here to inform you and through you to the world that the publication that are going around is not true, it's false, that the caucus, the majority caucus, has not made any changes in its leadership. The majority caucus has not contemplated making any changes to its leadership, and that we tell the whole world, Ghana, to ignore any such publication. They want to assure you that we have confidence in the leadership as they are, and the status quo shall remain. We are aware that upon the nomination of one of the deputy whips as a minister, a replacement will be made. That replacement will be made by the caucus when we have had the opportunity and the time to consider the appropriate replacement. This is all the information we want to share with you and to, through you, tell the world that the leadership of the majority caucus has not changed. We have not contemplated any change, and we do have no intention to effect any changes in the leadership of the majority caucus. I thank you very much.
Honorable Speaker, your constitution says you appoint your leadership in consultation with the party.
Which constitution?
The MPP's constitution.
That regulates MPP. The Parliament of Ghana has adopted standing orders which places the selection and change of hands of the caucus, and not anybody outside Parliament.
Why do we not see the current leadership of the majority doing the press conference as it is now? But it's you.
They are busy in the chamber, and it's about them. It is about them. The rest of us must stand up for them. They have led us effectively and efficiently, and the rest of us must stand up for them. And indeed, it doesn't need the leaders to say that we have not taken a decision. It is we, the members, the caucus. We have not taken any such decision. We are not contemplating any such decision.
Mr. Speaker, is there an external attempt to remove or say Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu as Speaker of your leader of your caucus?
I'm not aware of any such thing. Nobody has discussed that with the caucus. And since nobody has the power to do that outside the caucus, there may be rumors and intricacies, but the caucus in Parliament is not aware of any attempt to remove anybody.
And that there's Joe Osowusu. He is the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament. Well, a short while ago, we've been hearing from former National Chairman who has been appointed in the leadership role in the Flag Bearers campaign team. And Peter McMenu has been disclosing that at the meeting yesterday at the National Council and the NEC, This very matter is actually one that was proposed by some majority MPs. Listen.
It came up, but it came up in the sense that it was on the agenda, but the General Secretary and the chairman dropped it, that they need further consultation with the members of Parliament.
It was not discussed at all?
No. The only thing that was done was that it's on the agenda, but it's going to be stood down for further consultation with our members of Parliament.
So therefore, the proposal to make some changes has been mooted?
For now, because I came here as I sat down in the lobby, then I saw Honorable...
Yes, because I will need your reaction to that.
Honorable...
Joe Wise.
Joe Wise speaking to the press. Yeah. No, we've changed things such that we think that previously it was the party which made which chose the leaders. But we changed our rules.
But who is the proponent behind this motion or this move for a reshuffle of the majority leadership?
It must come from them. That's what it is. That's what.
So therefore, somebody within their rank is proposing that should happen.
Yeah. That's what it is.
And the person was not given the opportunity to justify his move?
Well, the ball was thrown back at them that go back and then have a discussion with the members of Parliament. And that's the end result is what I just saw on your screen.
So Joe Wise says they will resist any such move.
Well, if he has the majority, fine.
Let's go to Parliament right now because this is beginning to take a bit of an interesting dimensions there. I want to bring in my parliamentary correspondent who's been working his own sources within the House. Quick, what more do we know tonight?
Well, so Evans, we understand that yesterday, there was a NEC and Council of MPP meeting where this was going to be a subject, and there were certain factions. There were factions even within the governing Patriotic Party that favored Frank Anodompe, who's currently the majority chief whip, whilst others favored the deputy majority leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin. And so both parties working in concert actually put some information out to sort of preempt what the National Council and the party's executives are going to do on this. And this put the party in such a fix. In fact, some very senior members of Parliament telling me today from the majority side that they believe there's a certain scheme to remove the majority leader, Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu. And just a minute ago, the majority leader walked out of the chamber. I went straight to him, my camera on him, asking him, Majority Leader, what do you say to this scheme to remove you? He says, well, they can continue. He says that in Chi to say that, that is what he told me in Chi, But as far as so many of the leaders are concerned now, that scheme isn't going to work, and that will only destabilize the front of the majority. One MP telling me that if this decision goes through, the MPP majority in Parliament will become the minority, despite having more numbers. And so the MPP MPs themselves do not shy away from the claims that there is a real plot to remove the majority leader, because the understanding was that he was going to be given a foreign minister role. He wasn't given. And so he was expected to stay on to finish his term, only for new calls to come up within this week that he said to be removed. At the time that I'm told by this same MP, the majority leader has really resigned to himself that he is just going to be in the majority leadership until he retires from Parliament at the end of this meeting. So a lot of conspiracy theories going around here in Parliament, some divisions even coming up because a member of Parliament who was part of the MP who early on held the news conference. I'm talking about Mr. Aduma Kutisi, the member of Parliament for Nyal Sotium, who actually said he was opposed to the change, spoke to me later on saying now that he was not opposed and that he really thinks that Afenyo-Markin is a gentleman, he can work with him, but he thinks there should be some dialogue, Evan.
You'd certainly have some level of resistance. And I also needed to make people aware that even when some decisions are made within the majority caucus, sometimes not all of us are for it. And there's always some level of quote unquote, not, the appropriate word might be some people who may not be in support of the decisions made. But through it all, when we stand for, further discussion is what some of us are asking for, so that people come to appreciate why the need for the change, or why these changes are necessary at this point in time when we have just about 8 months. And to end it all, I think that I've always been a proponent of change. because it affords different people to bring on different ideas to support the government.
So he's a proponent of change, and you say he was there actually supporting that press conference that, in essence, told us that they will resist this if the party goes ahead.
Yes, Evans. In fact, he was one of the key persons who was standing right behind the Deputy Speaker, clearly evincing their support to the position that was being canvassed by the Deputy Speaker. And in fact, Evans, if you look at the floor today, there were a lot of movements. You could see a lot of MPs who came to stand behind the first Deputy Speaker, saying that they were opposed to the change of leadership. They were not going around in Parliament. Some of them went up to the Deputy Majority Leader. They spoke. They will call you behind the scenes as a journalist, try to recant, try to ask you that, okay, we were there because of this. We didn't know what exactly was being said. So there's a clear division. In fact, there are those who suggest that it is the persons who are now outgoing from Parliament who are now seeking to maintain the status quo. And for those persons who will still be here, they believe that a change may really be necessary to bolster the chances of the slim majority of the NPP to be able to do business in the next 8 or 9 months before the expiration of this parliament. But I don't like you see that you just heard there. Now, change his position from the morning was part of the MPs who backed the position that Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu must stay on, but now says he's really not opposed to change.
Let's quickly bring in Haruna Mohammed. He's the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP. Also joining me is Appiah-Kubi. He's MP Asante North Constituency. Both gentlemen join me right now. Now, Mr. Mohammed, is there a plot at the party level to depose the current leadership in Parliament?
Thank you, Evans. I would say good evening to your cherished listenership, and then yourself and my senior and lawyer, Appiah-Kubi. There has not been any plot within the NPP to oust any leader within any of the setup, either government or within the party setup or parliament.
So, how then do you react to Joe Sowusu's press conference? Because he confirms that there's a plot and don't allow that to stand.
When I listened to him, he never agreed that there was a plot from the press conference. He never said there was a plot that he knew. And I am unable to speak to a fact that he has actually indicated that there is a plot somewhere, because his answers were very clear when questions were posted to him.
For him to come forward, though, and make this particular bold declaration, and if you listen to Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu himself, last year when I interviewed him and I pulled this to him, he gave a cryptic response. Today, when we put it to him, he says, Omun Koso. And as we've heard from Mark Menu, this came up yesterday at the National Council meeting. And Mark Menu says it was deferred. Certainly, it's no rumor anymore. It's fact. This is something that the party has been asked to consider.
Evans, if you pick the party's constitution and you go to Article 10, which is national organization, and you go to 10.10, which talks about the steering committee of the party includes the leader of parliament, the party's parliamentary leader, which is the majority leader. And if you go and pick the party's constitution again, Article 10.4 of the party's constitution, which talks about the National Executive Committee, includes the leader of the party in parliament and also includes a representative of the parliamentary group, as well as include chairpersons of sector committees who are from parliament. And then if you go and read further on Article 10.3 of the party's constitution, which talks about National Council, the National Council composition include all voting members of the National Executive Committee, i.e., the leader of the parliament, the leader of the party's parliamentary leader in parliament, and also the one representative chosen by the parliamentary group, and also heads of the committees from parliament, and also include 20 members of parliament chosen by the party's parliamentary group. In effect, all stages of decision taking, right from steering committee, national executive committee, to the national council of the party, includes the leadership of parliament. And at no point or any circumstance has any of these three sets of leadership roles has discussed any of these changes, and this matter that has been collaborated was not a matter that was adopted at the National Council discussion yesterday.
But it came up for consideration.
Every meeting has an agenda, and that was not adopted as part of the discussion. And my senior and lawyer, Appiah-Kubi, I had the opportunity to discuss with him, and this matter, he knows, was not discussed. And I don't think that if leadership even had to discuss these matters, the leader of the parliamentary group has been truly represented throughout, and Parliament has been represented by the selection of the parliamentary group members who comes to either of these particular leadership positions that has been elected. However, the party has not discussed or made changes to the leadership of the House.
Is there an intention to make changes?
The party has not made any changes. There can only be an intention if the leadership discuss that, and the parliamentary leader will be part, and some members of parliament selected by the parliamentary group will also be part. But this is a matter that has not been discussed and decision taken, and it will be very difficult to say if there is intention. Evans, you know, intentions are not written down. Intentions are things that are bordered on people's mind or people's desire to do something. And as a national party, we cannot be speaking to intentions, but we must be seen to be speaking to fact. And that is why the General Secretary of the party, in his press conference after the National Council and NEC meeting, did not speak to that matter, because that was not a matter that was discussed and a decision was taken.
Okay, so categorically, there isn't a plan to change the leadership of the majority in the House.
It has not been a matter that has been discussed in any of the leadership rule, i.e. in Article 10.10, Article 10.3, and Article 10.4. That is Steering Committee, National Executive Committee, and the National Council. This has not been discussed, it has not been tabled, and decision has not been taken.
I mean, Andy Appiah-Kubi, thanks for also staying with us on this. I mean, so based on what I'm just hearing from the party's Deputy General Secretary, I mean, why was this press conference necessary? I mean, you're very close to the Joseph Owusu and the leadership in the House. You're a member yourself. So where is this coming from then? The party says this hasn't been discussed. I mean, yes, it came up yesterday, but it was shelved.
Yes, thank you very much for a very good evening to your cherished listeners. We saw on social media a publication that to the effect that party's presence in Parliament and leadership has been changed. In fact, it was published profusely on social media, but be it as it is, the party's leadership is not changed in the social media. So we ignored such complications. We went to the National Council meeting yesterday, National Executive Council meeting first, and on the agenda was consideration for the change of leadership of the parliamentary group. Albeit that at the time that we went through the agenda for the meeting, it was supposed to be the fifth item, but we were told by the General Secretary that although it was present on the agenda, there was indication that the leadership of the party wanted that agenda dropped, and we were informed that it has been dropped and that it won't be discussed at all. So it is true that it was not discussed at all at the National Executive Council meeting, as the Deputy General Secretary has already told your audience and your listeners. So it was not a matter to be considered at all. So if we discount the information published on social media and the fact that it was not discussed, we will say that nothing of the sort has happened so far. But today's meeting, I'm sure the Deputy Speaker wanted to take advantage of the situation to explain the circumstances of the present times, and indeed explain certain positions taken by Parliament in an enactment that is in effect for now in respect of who a majority caucus is, the leader is, and explain also the majority caucus. And indeed, the time that this enactment came into effect, and as said by the Deputy Speaker, this enactment came to effect on the 2nd day of January 2024. So as we speak now, the standing orders or the rules of engagement in the House is an enactment that is already in effect. And the Deputy Speaker took the trouble to explain the meaning by interpretation as it's in the enactment, the meaning of majority caucus, which means members of the party or parties that have the largest number of seats in the House. And also went further to explain by interpretation the meaning of majority leader as member of Parliament designated by the majority caucus as their leader in the House. And by so doing, explaining to the public that as per the operation of this standing orders, which is an enactment passed and came into effect on the 2nd January of 2024, majority leader means a member of the House designated by the majority caucus, which implies that the majority leader will always be selected by members of the caucus.
And not from any other outside interest or body, if it's a party or not. But I want to return to something you said. It's true that somebody put this on the agenda yesterday, except that, as you've explained, and Mark Meadow confirms this, the leadership said to you, we won't talk about it now. And that's the only reason why it wasn't discussed. That's a fact.
Yes, but I think that...
and who put it on the agenda? That's important. Who put it on the agenda? It was written down on the agenda. So definitely somebody had processed it and thought it important enough to put it on the agenda.
Normally, it's the General Secretary or the national leadership, the party's leadership, who prepare the agenda and serve it on all of us. And indeed, yesterday we all served copies of the agenda for the day. And you see, if there was nothing at all, because of the publication on social media, I'm sure, I wasn't there, but I'm sure that Deputy Speaker wanted to take advantage of the situation to explain.
It sounded more to me like a preemptive strike rather than explaining to us what the standing order is.
We are all there to learn new things. And if this statute has come into effect in January of this year, I'm not sure many people understand what this.
His constituency, he was speaking directly to anybody who really wanted. I guess he was speaking to the person who put that on the agenda in the first place.
I'm not sure. He wanted to provide information to the general public.
Yeah, but he knew. But he knew yesterday.
All of us understand.
But why was that important? He knew yesterday that at the National Council meeting this was shut down. It wasn't discussed. So there was no point.
It was not even introduced at all.
Exactly. So it wasn't, but it was on the agenda. So it wasn't discussed. Josh also knew that. When he saw the social media publications, why must he be responding to social media publications when he had been part of the National Council meeting where this, yes, was an agenda, but wasn't discussed?
No. We will go to the National Executive Committee meeting before we go to the National Council meeting.
Well, the National Executive meeting, the NEC meeting.
So the National Executive Committee meeting had that as an item on the agenda. But I may want to believe that maybe the National Council meeting, the General Secretary put it there to have opportunity of explaining the position of the enactment in respect of majority caucus and majority leader. I want to believe that that was the reason that the General Secretary may have put it on the agenda. So to have the opportunity of explaining the new position as per the enactment.
Of the standing orders. Let me ask you on the Appiah-Kubi. Based on all you know now, are you satisfied that there isn't a plot to depose the current leadership of the majority?
Well, I am not part of any group that has any plot or any plans like that. But even if there is a group that thinks that they would be able to do that, the deputy speaker has explained that it is the mandate to do that rests with members of the caucus as per this enactment. And therefore, by way of public information, whoever may have thought of having the capacity or mandate to effect any change will be so informed. So it is information to the public that this...
Information to the public or information to your party executives or whoever it is who first thought it wise to put it there?
Well, the public includes also members of the party. So if this information is being provided by the deputy speaker to the public, there's a presumption that everybody, including members of the party, will also abide by it.
Okay, I'm grateful. And Ms. Appiah-Kubi,
of the law to the public.
Ms. Appiah-Kubi, the Mark Menu suggested to us a couple of hours back that it was on the agenda because it must have come from your own ranks, from Parliament, that some of your members may have put it there. They have suggested that should be discussed too. Would you be surprised to learn that?
I have always been present at the caucus meetings. Never at any caucus meeting have we discussed the need to change at the leadership. So for him to suggest that it's coming from our caucus, well, I doubt it, but I don't know who he has spoken to. But it has definitely not been discussed at caucus for it to be suggested that it is the caucus that is moving such a motion or having such intentions. So it cannot pass as intentions having been expressed by our caucus.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andy Appiah-Kubi. Haruna Mohammed, considering the tensions this has introduced in Parliament among your ranks and the tensions between now yourself and some of the members in Parliament, is there any move to try and bring closure to this? If anybody is in doubt, the way you've been very categorical, directly engage to resolve any further misinterpretations? Sorry. Let me, Ms. Appiah-Kubi, let me hear from Haruna Mohammed, the Deputy General Secretary. Yes.
Evans, I want to state this point. There has not been any tension between Parliament and the party. There is no any visible tension between the party and Parliament, not at all. And Evans, one thing that I also want to correct is that once a matter is not adopted on the agenda, it doesn't become a matter on the agenda. So I want to state that once that matter was not part of the agenda that was adopted, cannot be said to be part of the agenda. And that is why it has not been discussed. And I want to state this. There has been precedent in terms of how parliamentary leadership has been done. It is very imperative to know that there has been a change in terms of how these things should be done, which has just been passed recently by Parliament. And we know Parliament is the master of its rules. And that is why in the structure of the party at the national level, we have a true representation of parliamentary leadership and caucus leadership. And that is why you hear Andy Appiah-Kubi, who is a lawyer, a senior person in the party, and a member chosen by the parliamentary group to represent them at NEC and National Council. So if these are the matters that are emanating from the new changes in Parliament, it is better that leadership through with Parliament will discuss these matters and see going forward how it should be done. This should have been the conversation that should be taking place. But it is rather unfortunate that in some of the cases, our emotions gets to override the content and the matter for which we have to discuss to be able to get an amicable solution. I believe that this is not a matter that can divide the front of the party and the parliamentary group. And I think that the General Secretary, the National Chairman, and the flag bearer of the party will look at this matter very carefully. And that is why it was not discussed, the decision was not taken, and there is no change in parliamentary leadership.
Thank you very much, Haruna Mohammed. Thank you very much, Andy Appiah-Kubi. And this is a subject that first cropped its very controversial head when there was what many described as a coup d'etat in Parliament among the minority members. Then it was discussed that that process has to be amended. Let's bring in Dr. Rasheed Draman, is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, joins us right now. Dr. Draman, thanks for your time here on Top Story. This is coming up again. Yes, we've had some clarity tonight, but that press conference was still pretty strong. In terms of resolving this, we've had both on the Appiah-Kubi and now the Deputy General Secretary refer now to the new standing orders. Does that resolve that tension that tends to emerge between the party and the parliamentary group on who should become leader?
Yeah, Evans, I hope it does, because at the end of the day, like you described it, I see this as a failed coup against Honorable Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu. Perhaps somebody wanted to stage this coup and realized that they don't have support of the troops in Parliament. With these new standing orders, I am hoping that at least there will be some democratic and transparent processes in terms of how both caucuses elect their leaders.
And that is a critical point here. But how do you get to achieve that, though? Yes, it's written in print, but somebody still attempted. As you described it, it's a failed coup. Somebody still attempted. And these rumors, by the way, has been circulating for months. I posed that to Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu himself, and he gave a very cryptic response.
Indeed, I think what I see is that if you look at the pattern of the recent reshuffle, it looks as if the NPP is trying to get rid of all, those who have either lost their primaries or all those who are not going to contest again. And if this is the case, it's really unfortunate against the personality of somebody like Honorable Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu, who I think has done a lot, not only for the NPP, I think, but for our parliamentary democracy in this country.
Thank you very much. And that there is Dr. Rasheed Draman, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs.